Hello, welcome to Muskegon Rotary. I'm Jenny Sprague, and I have the privilege of serving as your president for this Rotary year of 2023-2024. And today's program will be the history of Muskegon Rotary grants to area charities. And we will start our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a brief tradition moment and a reflection from J.J. Lewis. And we will recite the four-way test at the end of the meeting. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the theme for Rotary's month of July is transition. And I have a brief moment of transition to share with you. As we celebrate our nation's birthday this week, we can note another transitional moment in our nation's history. On July 6, 1775, a few months after the 13 colonies had rebelled against their British colonial overseers, the Continental Congress drafted a resolution entitled "The Declaration of Causes and Necessity of Taking Up Arms." Thomas Jefferson was the primary author of this document, and it was an important precursor to the Declaration of Independence, which he penned just a year later. In this Declaration of Causes and Necessity, the colonists described several grievances, including taxation without representation, restrictive legislation, and noted that the British Crown had largely ignored their pleas and demands over the years. At this point, the colonists still maintained that they were not seeking independence, just a redress to their concerns. Over the next year, public sentiment began to change, and on July 4th, 1776, the delegates to the Continental Congress signed the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia. And on July 6, 1776, the Pennsylvania Evening Post printed the first newspaper rendition of the Declaration of Independence. We will now have a reflection. Please remain standing for J.J. Lewis.
All right, one of my favorite calendars is nationalcalendar.com. And did you know that today is International Kissing Day, National Fried Chicken Day, and National Hand Roll Day? Didn't mean that we needed examples, but thank you for participating. Being newer to our club, speakers throughout the last year were awarded or granted a donation to the Malala Fund. And would you know it, next week, July 12th, is Malala Day. So the reflection's really about Malala Day, which is celebrated on July 12th of every year in honor of that Nobel Peace Prize recipient. It also falls on her birthday. She was born in Pakistan on July 12th, 1997. Her father was an educator, and as a result, she developed a thirst for knowledge. In 2007, unfortunately, the Taliban took over the city in which she lived and banned girls from attending school. As young as she was, she demonstrated fierce bravery by standing up to the Taliban. In 2009, she started a blog and wrote about life under Taliban rule. She also wrote about her desire to go to school. For 3 years, she and her father advocated for the right for girls to attend school. On the morning of October 9th, 2012, gunmen from the Taliban shot her in the head. She was just 15 years old at the time. She spent 4 days in military hospitals, and she was transferred to an ICU in Birmingham, England. After multiple surgeries and weeks of therapy, she began attending school in Birmingham. On her 16th birthday, she traveled to New York to speak at the United Nations. 2013, Time magazine declared her one of the world's most influential people. And a year later, she was named a Nobel Peace Prize winner. Along with this prestigious honor, she also received the United Nations Human Rights Prize and the Liberty Medal. And then in 2017, she began her studies at Oxford. She currently resides in Birmingham, England, and continues to fight for women's empowerment and education. Now, this is coming up, so there's a couple ways you can participate in Malala Day. You can learn about countries such as South Sudan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Liberia, where it's difficult for girls to get an education. You can read her book, I Am Malala, the girl who stood up for education and was shot. You can, of course, donate to her fund. She has, there's a Grammy-winning album, I Am Malala, How One Girl Stood Up for Education and Changed the World. There's a documentary, He Named Me Malala. And of course, on social media, one of my most favorite things in the whole wide world, you can share your thoughts on her by using the hashtag Malala Day. Thank you.
Thank you for that, and resume your lunch and enjoy it. We will start again around 12:15. Enjoy. Okay, I know that was a very brief interval to eat your lunch, but please continue to enjoy it. We're going to move along with our agenda, and we're going to start with our visiting Rotarians and guests. If you could please come up over here, we will get you on camera. I know that we have guests for Jackie Farr, Marianne Gorman, Rachel Gorman, and Meredith Smiley, and Amy Seymour will help you with getting.
See yourself on the monitor. Nope. Good afternoon, Rotarians. I just want to introduce my son, Connor Smiley. Connor participated in the Life Leadership Conference earlier in the month of June, was actually Conferee of the Year at the Life Leadership Conference, and is the new president of the Mona Shores Interact Club. Obviously, I'm a little biased.
Good afternoon. Well, in the scheme of first come, first served, there are a whole bunch of you that wish you were doing what I'm doing today, which is introducing Karen Bowie Jenkins, who is the relatively new county clerk, previously county clerk, and Karen is a prospective member and will be joining Muskegon Rotary Club. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you.
I'm not going to let Jim Fisher upstage us. I, too, have a prospective member, and I'm happy to introduce Laura Lorenz. And Laura is the branch manager for PNC on the north side. Laura Lorenz.
Good afternoon. I have Deborah Sweet with me today as a colleague from the city of Muskegon, and she is the guest of 3 individuals, including myself, Commissioner Gorman, and Commissioner Ramsey today. So she is blessed and honored. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My guest today is Rich Francisco. He's the new executive director at Health West.
Hi, everybody. I'm not sure I'm supposed to do this. I gotta move? Okay. Oh, jeez. This acting, the showbiz stuff is, okay. This is Jerry Kuster. You've seen him around. He's going to be inducted as a member at a fascinating background that you'll hear about on the 21st, because we had a little communication screw up. He's supposed to be inducted today, but Jerry's been to a few meetings and very interesting person, so be sure to introduce yourself when you get a chance. And in 2 weeks, he'll be formalized.
Welcome. Well, thank you, everyone. We appreciate the guests and the interest in Rotary. Thank you. Now we will move on to our program, and Nancy Crandall will introduce our speakers for today's program. Nancy?
We were concerned that a number of new members, and even some of the long-term members, may not know about our grants committee and the good work that Rotary is doing in our own community with grants to organizations. So Tim Arter asked us to present a program to you to tell you about what we've been doing. The grants committee has, over the years, included past presidents. As they become a past president, they become the chair of the grants committee for the year, with the thinking that having been president, they're pretty aware of what's going on in the community and where needs are. So Jane thought she was getting off easy with her past president status, but she will be the new chair of the grants committee. And it also includes all the past presidents and anybody else who would like to join us who has an interest in granting dollars to the community. We have a lot of thanks to give to all the members of the committee and to the Community Foundation that holds our funds. And Arn will, in a minute, tell you about the monies that we have invested in the Community Foundation. And especially to Heidi Seitzma, who tells us every year how much money we are able to grant. That's the first thing the chairperson does, is call Heidi. To present everything you ever wanted to know about Muskegon Rotary Grants Committee, Arn Bozart and Mark Myers will do the presentation. We figured they didn't need an introduction. They've been members forever.
Let me get my agenda out of your way. Sure.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you so much for that introduction, Nancy. By the way, Nancy is the reason I am a Rotarian. As mayor of Norton Shores back in 2004, she promoted me to city administrator, and not long after said, "Hey, Mark, I think I've got a club I think you should join." And of course I said, "Sign me up, whatever you need." So you can either thank or blame her, I'm not sure which. So, well, I was chosen by my peers, in other words, I drew a short straw to make this presentation today. I don't feel, although I've chaired the committee, I don't feel as worthy as some of our long-term members, including Arn here, who will give you some history. But before we start, could committee members stand up, please, to be recognized? Applause is appropriate. Thank you very much. And then I want to thank Arn for putting the PowerPoint together. Also Jason Pisecki, who just ended his chairmanship, who also helped with the PowerPoint. So today we're going to give you a little bit of history on the grants committee and grant making. We're going to talk about how the funds work and what's available. We're going to talk about the grant process and priorities, and also provide you some examples of past projects. So with that, take it away, Arn.
Hello, everybody. Arn Bozart. I, too, was one of the people who drew a short straw, but I'm pleased to share this information. What we're sharing with you today is really important. We're talking about the Muskegon Rotary Community Fund. One of the goals of this presentation is to share some nomenclature, some labels that we would like you to be more aware of and start using as we talk about our grant-making capacity. So the slide that I have for you, there we are. Thank you, Mike, for sharing the technology with us. So the history of the Muskegon Rotary Community Fund. It was established in 1992 at the Community Foundation, as Nancy referred to earlier. And the fund was set up using $101,623 from the sale of the former Camp Emery property. Many people, I think, have lost the knowledge of how this fund that Rotary has available came to be, and have also perhaps lost knowledge of or never knew that there was a Camp Emery. Camp Emery was a YWCA summer camp located on Big Blue Lake, and was part of the demise of the national YWCA movement, certainly here in Muskegon. The camp closed at some point, and the camp property was gifted to Muskegon Rotary. And without going into too many details, a portion of the proceeds, the property was sold ultimately by Rotary in two different directions, one of which was to create a fund at the Community Foundation. And as you can see on the slide, $101,000 was used to do that. The fund was originally set up as the Rotary Foundation because Rotary wanted to present itself as a foundation of sorts to the community. But back in 2008, as you'll see on the slide, the fund was renamed as the Muskegon Rotary Community Fund, and there's formal documentation to support that. And that was done basically to distinguish the difference between the Community Foundation, where the assets of the fund are held, and the fact that the Muskegon Rotary Community Fund is what they call a component fund of the Community Foundation. It's an endowment-based fund, which means that the principal of the funds put into the system to create the fund are never touched, only the growth and earnings of the fund. Those of you who are familiar with the world of finance will instantly grasp the significance of being an endowment fund, but not everybody gets that, and it takes a little explanation at times. The fund is subject then to the policies and procedures of the Community Foundation, and the $460-some thousand that we presently hold in assets, which I'll describe in a minute in more detail, are part of the total Community Foundation portfolio, which last numbers I have was somewhere in the neighborhood of $233 million. So the Rotary Fund is part of the total assets of the Community Foundation and managed professionally for us. The Community Foundation has a long-term investment strategy, so they basically they strive for long-term growth and imbalanced investment, and subject to market fluctuations. Our fund actually has grown a bit in the last 12 months, but not as much as you might like. But then, when was the last time you looked at your 401k balance sheets? And we're basically in the same kind of flow of activity as all market investments have been in the last period. Only the investment growth and earnings, as I mentioned, are subject to support Rotary projects available to do that. So let me just share a little additional information, fun facts, as I call them. The use and disbursement of endowment funds, and by the way, Rotary is officially labeled as an organizational endowment fund with the Community Foundation. There's a process for calculating the available funds, and as Nancy indicated, we reach out to Heidi once a year. That's correct because there's a formula that basically takes 16 rolling quarters at any period in time, and there's an averaging process to determine what the fund balance is over 16 quarters, and then of that, 4% is available for grant making. Won't go into the detail further than that, but that's essentially how it works. As of December of last year, the fund stood at $446,000, $446,160 as of December, and as of the first quarter of this year, which is the most recent data we have, the fund balance was $462,000 and change. We should have a new quarterly statements in about 2 or 3 weeks, I would guess. And I anticipate that the fund balance will again show a bit of an increase despite the kind of marginal market performance over the past year. So the fund continues to grow. Using all that calculation, the 16 rolling quarter average, 4% factor, that basically made $14,500 available for the current fiscal year, both Community Foundation as well as Rotary fiscal year, meaning from July 1 through June 30. Rotary Community Fund and the policies and practices are there to basically make sure that fund remains healthy and viable and continues to grow in perpetuity. The word perpetuity is an important one. I think a lot of people sometimes forget that these funds are meant to last for the long haul. And so we have to be aware of the limitations, and we have to be aware of the policies and practices that it takes to grow this fund. But some good news, since 1994, when the fund was first established, the Rotary Community Fund has awarded 121 grants, as you can see on the slide if I advance it properly. 121 grants have been awarded with a total combined value of $502,000. So significant contributions to the community. During the early years of the fund, some very large grants were awarded, and again has to do with funds that were remaining from the Camp Emery transactions and the sale of property. Also had some very good years with Grape Escape and other fundraising. So when you look at the fund history and grants made, there's some very large grants in the early years, but we don't typically see those any longer. And we are now in a more standard grant-making kind of pattern using the formula and the available funds that I referenced a minute ago. Standard grant-making from the fund then is subject to the annual spendable distribution following the Community Foundation guidelines for endowed funds. I would say that club members individually and the club as a group, as an institution, is encouraged to grow the endowment. If you have a sense of appreciation for the value of endowment and the capacity to grow the fund, adding to the endowment will make a difference over the long haul. Good examples of how you as an individual could contribute to the Rotary Community Fund would be through your estate planning, any legacy gifts you might ultimately leave behind, as well as memorial contributions. So lots of different ways that you can grow the endowment of the Muskegon Rotary Community Fund, and see Heidi and her associates if you want to know more about that. So that's the history of the fund. And again, rather than referring to it as the Rotary Foundation, I would really encourage everyone in the room to begin to think and recognize what we have available as an asset as the Muskegon Rotary Community Fund. And I think that gives you a good framework for Mark now to share where we've been, what we've done, and how we've made a difference in the community.
Thank you, Arn. Can you tell he worked for the Community Foundation for many years? I knew he was better to present those slides than I. So I'm going to talk a bit about grant-making process and priorities, and talk about some grants that we've made in the past. So in terms of leadership, Nancy touched on the immediate past president becomes chair, and it's interesting because as president, you spend your first year on the committee and you have no idea what's going on. And then during your presidential year, you're too busy being president, so suddenly, you become chair and it's like, okay, how does this work again? So that's why folks like Nancy and Don Crandall and Arn provide a lot of continuity. They've been on the committee for many years and they're very helpful, and as is the previous chair, so Linda Juarez in my case, and then I think I helped Jason out a little bit this year as I ended my year in 21-22. So the committee typically, by design, meets twice a year. It can meet much more often than that, and I'll talk about that a little later, but grant priorities and principles, and we'll touch on that, those can be found on the website. And then the process starts with an initial letter of inquiry, just a general synopsis of an organization's project, how much they're asking for. Then that information is shared with the committee, and then by consensus we determine whether a formal grant application is warranted. Because we have typically about $15,000 a year, and although the maximum you can request is $15,000, and we do get requests for $15,000 a year, it's not typical to grant that single amount to one organization. So In my case, I think we had 7 grants during the year. We will often, even though a worthy project wants $15,000, we may grant a portion of it, $5,000 for example. Okay, so what are the priorities? Community development projects that enhance the area. So this is Muskegon-wide. We typically don't get involved in the Whitehall-Montague area. Activities that benefit youth, activities that promote that should be healthier Muskegon County. Don't mention that typo to my staff. Roger, I know you'd point that out to me. He's one of my members. He likes, if we have an error on the agenda, he likes to point it out, but I think that John's probably smiling too because I prove his stuff all the time. So I make spelling mistakes as well. Appreciation for celebration of inclusion and diversity, and I'll talk about a project that did just that. Leadership training and members and students, and then of course international service. Rotary, of course, is known for its international service, and we're no different. We apply the 4-way test when we're considering grants. Again, we look at projects that benefit the community. Capacity is important in financing, so on the formal request, we ask for a budget, and we ask for amounts that are given from other sources, so other organizations. We like to see measurable results. We encourage collaboration and cooperation among different organizations. Of course, many of our applicants are nonprofits, and then sustainability is important. We want to invest these funds for the long haul. Some things that we won't fund: we don't fund individuals, religious activities serving a specific group, multi-year support, and operational administrative support. We like to usually invest in things or projects initially, but we don't pay for ongoing administrative costs for supplies and personnel and that type of thing. So let's take a look at some of the projects that we've funded. I'm sure you're all familiar with the Massey mural on the arena. That was a project during my year. Also, we've funded a couple projects in Muskegon Heights, one that's not on the list. We funded $2,500 towards the Muskegon City Art Initiative Band Together sculpture for Rowan Park. You may be familiar with that, the drum major. Also, let's see, I want to touch on another project not on the list, but $4,000 towards, I always have a problem saying this, Cartoonversation. If you remember, we had a program on that. That company produced a 3-book series of DE&I stories for 3rd graders for the entire Muskegon ISD. And I'll note that our own club's DEI committee also donated $1,000 towards that effort. So very important effort there. And you can see the other projects. We've got some photos here as well. And I'll just close with a few insights. Again, we don't meet once or twice a year. We meet throughout the year, and that's a good thing because it means we're spreading the wealth, so to speak. I will say that giving money is fun, all caps. I know now why Todd Jacobs and Heidi Seitzma do what they do with the Community Foundation. It's very gratifying work to give to, again, we have many impactful organizations and many impactful projects throughout the community. It's really, really overwhelming. It's also very gratifying to be involved in that. I will mention, and it was touched on earlier, but you don't have to be a past president to be a member. Don Hutchins asked to be a member during my year, and I was happy to oblige, and Don's been a very active member since. So tell incoming chair Jane Klingman Scott that you're interested if you are. And of course, I'm willing to help Jane out all that I can. So with that, Madam President, do we have time for questions?
So, Mark, when we have a fundraiser like Grape Escape or Pours for Community, do the net proceeds go entirely into the foundation and are subject to only the 4% distribution, or are they retained in a separate account to be allowed to spend more of that in a year's time?
Yeah. Well, typically with Grape Escape, the history has been that 50% of that goes to a nonprofit organization that we designate. Arn, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's probably a question that needs to be addressed to the board at the time. I think it's the board's prerogative to determine what goes towards the endowment and what is retained for general spending throughout the year. I would encourage people to be mindful that we have the endowment and that funds go there, become part of the base investment, and then subject to the other principles and guidelines that I mentioned.
Is this committee also working with matching funds to Interact clubs and paying for the Life Leadership Conference?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Yeah, we certainly do typically encourage matching funds with not only the Interact clubs, for example, but also other clubs in the area. So, for example, we gave $500 to the Momentum Center. You'll remember a recent program, their Across the Bridge program, and we challenged Spring Lake and Grand Haven clubs to match our funding, which they did. So, great question. Apparently, we answered all the questions. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
If I could just put in a last pitch, if you will, for the power of endowments. If you have a sense of a long-term view and a sense of growing for the future, I think the rule of thumb last I knew in the financial world is that given normal investment times and returns on investment as the community foundation does, a fund should probably double about every 10, 12 years. I think these days it's taking a little longer because we're coming out of a period of sort of flat investment returns, but I think it's fair to say that that $460,000 that I mentioned earlier as the fund balance could double in 20 years, say, probably a little less than that. And so 4% rather of 400,000, figure what 4% of 800,000 would be, and you can see how this club will have an ever-growing presence with philanthropy and community giving as that endowment grows and builds. So keep that in mind.
If you could wait right here for a moment, gentlemen.
Certainly.
Thank you very much for your program. We really appreciate learning more about what we are doing with all the money you help us raise and the good works that are done with it. As an expression of our thanks for your presentation, Muskegon Rotary will make a contribution to Hand Wash. Mike will be showing the symbol of it. Hand Wash is a cooperative initiative between Terra Nueva in Haiti and Champion Rotary District 6290 to provide clean water, sanitation, and hygiene in rural areas of Haiti. You'll be hearing more about this throughout the year. We will have a nice banner when it comes in, and yeah, no pressure, Kathy. Okay, good. But knowing your devotion to water projects and the Crandalls and Arn, we thought that was a great way to start off our new Rotary year to say thank you to our speakers. Thank you so much.
Great initiative.
Thank you, it is. Okay, and speaking of transitions, we are now going to the birthday part of our agenda, and we are making a transition here. And I will say, you're all going to thank me because it doesn't involve me leading singing. That doesn't go well. And all future presidents will also be grateful for this, and everyone's past is going, why didn't I think of this? So anyway, I have a screen up here. I do want to celebrate the birthdays for this month. And I also want to recommend, as part of this, we ask you to contribute $10 as your gift for your birthday to Muskegon Rotary. This money goes to our Caring Connection, which helps members of our Rotarian family during life's significant events, whether positive or negative. We want to be there to let people know we're thinking of them. And you help that with your contribution. You have two ways to do this now. You can use a QR code. This is displayed here. It'll also be out in the hall. Or there's envelopes where you can put your $10 and just hand it to Kim at your convenience, so you don't have to come up here while we're not singing. So anyway, our birthdays for this week are Bob Irwin and Mary Beth Ramos on July 6th, so happy birthday today. Tomorrow we celebrate for Steve Tomczak and Andy Belo on July 7th. And then Bill Johansson, I hope you're online, Bill, July 8th. Mary Boyd also on July 8th. And Lisa Hegenbart, July 11th. So thank you for that. Now we're moving on. Oh, I'm sorry, Kathy. That was not old, Kathy. I mean, Kathy Hagedis, July 12th. I would even sing for you, but you don't want that. So, anyway, my apologies. We now move on to Member Spotlight, and we are starting something different, another transition. We are focusing on the theme of each Rotary month, and as I said, July is Transition Month, and Kathy Brubaker-Clark is our first presentation. Enjoy.
I'm Kathy Brubaker-Clark. I've been in Rotary for many years, I think going on 20 now. I am currently with Greater Muskegon Economic Development. I am the Grants and Program Manager here. And previous to that, I was the Community and Economic Development Director with the City of Muskegon for about 29 years. Then I had the opportunity, there were some changes happening at Muskegon Area First at that time. So I was asked to come on a part-time, not necessarily permanent basis to join Muskegon Area First. And I did that, and I'm very glad I did, because here 6 years later, I'm still here, and I'm loving the new work that I have transitioned to with Greater Muskegon Economic Development, as we are now called. And most recently, over the last few years, I have been the one doing all the grants, something that's new for our organization. We've brought in many grants, well over $1 million last year, and several already this year. One of the, besides our basic 3 goals for Greater Muskegon Economic Development, are our traditional work with business retention, expansion, and attraction. And then a second goal is for talent and making sure our businesses have the talent necessary and qualified for the jobs that we have here in Muskegon County. But our third that I'm also very excited on, and that I'm very excited about, and that I work very closely with, is working with the City of Muskegon Heights on economic development and partnering with them on that.
Thank you, Kathy. We appreciate you sharing that moment with us. At this point, we are going to do some announcements. Andrew Cutler, Tim Arter, I know you have some, if you can make your way up. In the meantime, I will say I want to do a thank you to John Noling and the other Rotarians who helped place the flags for the 4th of July. We really appreciate your allowing us to show our patriotic moment. And Rewind will not be meeting this evening. They are transitioning to a day off. And but I will say they will be having their highway cleanup on Friday, July 14th, so you might consider helping them out. I think it involves gloves, bags, and safety vests, so you'd be okay. So, Andrew?
Andrew Cutler here. It is time to put it on your calendars. August 18th is Rotary's Party in the Park. So I am looking for volunteers of all sorts. I will be getting the sign-up sheet out on the website, and it'll be emailed out. So we need a lot of help. So I know a lot of us have done it in the past, so just putting that out there. You'll hear more about it in the upcoming weeks, so just add it to your calendars.
Volunteer early and often.
Hi, I'm Tim Arter. I chaired the Pros for Community Committee, and just wanted to make a quick report on the results of our endeavor. We had a very successful fundraiser for the Muskegon Rotary Foundation. We held happy hours at 7 brewery, distillery, and restaurant establishments over a 3-week period in late April and early May. Our net profits after expenses was about $5,700, which is up about $2,500 net over the previous year, so very successful there. As far as attendance, we estimate as best as we could, primarily using the sign-up sheets that people, when we sent the invitation out, people who responded to it. But our best estimate is we had 70 individuals, Rotarians and guests, many of that 70 attended more than one time. So apparently they had a great time and came back for it. We had establishment PORS contributions. The people will often ask me, what is this whole PORS about? And the PORS are, we do have the individual establishments contribute to our effort by, there's a variety of formulas. Each establishment has a different way of doing it, but basically we get $1 per pour, and we raised $1,300 just through the PORS. So there was 1,300 PORS that we had. We think that we enjoyed a number of wins in a number of ways. As I mentioned, we raised $5,700 to benefit local organizations. We created 7 opportunities for Rotarians and guests to socialize outside our normal luncheon meetings. We also had the opportunity for prospective members to come and see Rotarians at work and socializing. We did hold some special events within the happy hours. One was a new member social. Another one, we had Rewind serve as the host for that evening, and many, if not all, of their members attended. And one event we had JC members attending. We want to thank the PORS for Community Committee and the members, sponsors, establishments where we held our events, and most certainly to our member attendees. We are going forward with PORS for Community 2024. Believe it or not, we're going to start planning in September. If anybody is interested in participating in it, get a hold of me. We'd love to have you. We have a great time at our committee meetings. It's, I think, helped along by we go to each of those establishments and test the waters, if you will. But anyway, thank you very much for all your participation.
Yeah, thank you, Tim and Andrew. We appreciate that information. So, our next order of business is your favorite, the raffle. And Frank Peterson, are you doing the honors today? What's first? $5 first. Two, 1. Oh, Sheriff Gale. Hey, Chief Gale. Congratulations. That's okay. It's a big crowded room. Yeah, close enough. 219. And this is for how much? Frank, is this for 10? Yeah, 219. Oh, we have another winner, JJ. See, when you do reflections, it comes out well for you. 278 for the big $20 winner, Jean Fethke. All right, congratulations, Jean. Wow, tough crowd. Okay, thank you for this, your attention to our today's program. Next week, we will be seeing a video presentation called This Is What I Do. It's a new initiative, and I think you're going to enjoy it. I want to thank all our visiting guests, and hope you enjoyed your time with us. And we will close with a four-way test. If everyone could rise. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Have a good week. Go out and create hope in the world. We are adjourned.